day 3 of our 40-day journey through the Gospel of John. When I started this, I thought I would spend the first 2 days in chapter 1, but here we are on day 3 and I'm still in chapter 1. If you look at verses 35 onwards towards the end of the chapter, what we read about is Jesus calling people to follow him, his disciples. Yesterday we was reading how John the Baptist had this revelation, realizing that this was the Christ, this was the Son of God, even though he'd known Jesus for his life, throughout his life. This bit, when we get to in verse 35 onwards, are seemingly strangers, maybe people Jesus didn't know nearly as well, or maybe he'd never met them at all. But when Jesus comes along, we read people decide to follow him. In verse 37, it said, when John's 2 disciples heard that this was the Lamb of God, they followed Jesus. They heard that and they followed him. It goes on to talk about Andrew following Jesus. It goes on to talk about Philip following Jesus. We hear this catalogue of people who meet with Jesus, hear the call from him where he says, follow me, and they just follow. It's quite mysterious why people choose to be a follower of Jesus. Probably your story is like many of these people, just there's a moment, a realization that I've got to follow Jesus. He is the one. He is the Son of God. What we also read in this very short few verses is this almost like this domino effect. One person chooses to follow Jesus and then they go to tell someone else. So Andrew goes to find his brother, Simon Peter, to say to him, we found the Messiah. Philip goes to look for Nathanael to tell him. There's this cascade, and we not only read that when we have that moment of decision to follow Jesus, that it can be mysterious and not clear why people just go, I've just got to follow him. But we also discover that it leads to drawing other people and saying, come on, meet this one that I have seen. Find the Christ. It's really bizarre. The last part of this chapter, we hear about Nathanael. When you read these verses, Nathanael has this revelation that Jesus is the Son of God just because Jesus saw him under a fig tree. That's the best explanation you can come up with. And even Jesus says to him, this is in verse 50, he says, do you believe this just because I told you I'd seen you under the fig tree? You'll see greater things than this. Whatever the reason is for that dawning realization to follow Jesus, Jesus says you're going to see even greater than this. The decision to follow Jesus leads to some of the greatest moments in life, some of the greatest revelations of who Jesus is. And it leads us to look for friends, for family, for others. And so come and meet him too. Well, have a blessed day.